I mean, talking about somebody that was just in the crosshairs that should have never been part of this. It's very unfortunate to see that young kid really get stuck in all this. And I mean, for him to still still have his head wrapped around pretty good for what it looks like is amazing, because I don't even know how he's able to do it and how he's able to go ahead and hold himself up after all that happened to him. Like, that's a situation I would never wish on any, even a worst enemy. But for Chris Benoit, I can still remember when the coverage started coming out, and one of the shows I was listening to, and I was working at Clear Channel at the time, and I was really big into wrestling, but I was always thinking about, should I get myself into podcasting about wrestling? And I was thinking that might be a show I'd do, but it would be another 5 years down the line before I did. And one of the shows I was listening to at the time was Don Tony Castle, when it was the Minority Report. And I remember hearing it after they talked about it, after the Monday night show, and everybody just feeling upset, and all of us just feeling shocked and saddened before we knew everything else was going on. Because remember, even though Jim Ross says it was upon them as the people in the wrestling business to go out there prematurely without knowing all the facts, then there's another story when you look at what happened and knowing all the story and all the facts, having to come back in such a weird situation. But the thing was, it's always in certain crises that WWE always does things where they must keep the show going on. It's the P.T. Barnum kind of feeling. I feel like Vince McMahon always has to be inclined to do that. Did not want to just shut down the show. We got 3 hours to fill. It's on USA Network. We have to do a show. And I believe by then they were already on USA Network. They had already left Spike. So at that point, they needed to go ahead and continue with the show. There was no other way they can go around it. And people know the story. Obviously, the internet was still, didn't take much time for news to get around, especially around the wrestling rags, especially at that time as well. Now, of course, we didn't have social media, but we could see all the message boards. We could see everything that was going on, and news went quick. And 2007, we were just getting into the crosshairs of Twitter and Facebook. And really, people weren't using it just like it is now. Nothing like it is now. But the kind of interaction that I saw, what a well-told story. They brought the right wrestlers on to go and talk about it. Hearing from Vicky, hearing from Nancy's sister, hearing from Chavo, hearing from Chris Jericho. Man. A lot of things that they made mention of were absolutely right. Chris Benoit can never be inducted into the Hall of Fame. He could never be recognized for anything. But one thing that's got to be said, what Chris Nowinski was talking about, I think everybody wants to go ahead and try to use it was just a complete self-destruction of him, and that CTE wasn't the overlying factor. But I have to believe that from everything I've seen about CTE, when it comes to the concussions, I really think that's probably was there's such things where it's anger and rage and alcohol all mixed into a real bad cocktail, yes. But I also think there's something to be said about, and here's the thing too, in the cases where we've heard about other players that had retired from the NFL that dealt with CTE, those were people that had retired. Meanwhile, Chris Benoit was still an active wrestler, very much active in his career. And to see all that happened, it's just still, it does bring back a lot. And I still remember hearing all the guys in that round table for Minority Report talking about this, and just saying to myself, man, it was what a weird time, because I'll tell you, that loomed around for a while, and the ramifications for it were really hard on everybody, because wrestling just went through a tough time. When you look at all that was happening, yeah, it was tough for everybody, and there wasn't much you could do about it. But it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate about all that happened here as a result, and the fact that, man, I don't know what you think about that after the fact, but I'll tell you, it's depressing altogether. And I'll tell you, I always wonder now with WWE, and I don't want to bring this up on the Wrestling Observer podcast, because this is one of those things where I just don't want to put that in part, because there's too much to talk about with WrestleMania and the things going on with that to go ahead and insert it here. Maybe I'll just add it and attach it. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure. But for myself, I'm just thinking about the fact that with Chris Benoit, I mean, you look at the era of wrestlers you had at that time and what was going on. And I'm saying to myself, man, with all that happened, it's so unfortunate that at that time, look at what WWE had to do in order to desensitize remember, the audience is desensitized now. And all that they had to go through and watch to keep people glued in. Look at the severity of the chair shots and the table spots and all of that. And people don't even get really caught up into it as much as they did anymore because of the severity that was really going on back then, which in some cases, that's where the Attitude Era really was its best, because they really did. Sure, the sex was there, but the extreme violence. Talk about real damage being done to people. That's what was there. And that's what you have to think about, is that there was such a point going so far, and seeing the way wrestling is now with all the acrobatics and the real athleticism and the real sportsmanship, the real professional, the acrobatics that you have to have. That's the style of wrestling we've accustomed to now, because that is in response to what was going on before, the extreme side of wrestling, which I'll admit was shocking and exciting at the same time. But as a wrestling fan, I never wanted to get this. I wouldn't have wanted to have seen wrestlers like Chris Benoit or Eddie Guerrero or others go through such a severity only to get injured and destroyed like that. It was a different time. You know, when you're thinking about 20 years ago, you think about 15 years ago, it was a different time. And nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew that we were going to get to a point that, man, this is too much. We shouldn't get to this point. It's not good for anybody. But we did, and here we are. And it sucks. And it's a shame to see all that has happened. But what are you going to do? And so I think about what David Benoit is going through. I think about how CTE really is a much more important factor, and there should be more treatment to it. And obviously, we're seeing it with the NFL getting that. I don't know how much of that was being done with professional wrestlers. I don't know. But it's just unfortunate that kind of tragedy happened. And I'll say Chris Jericho was right when he says that Nancy, just put her in her real name, Nancy Tuffoloni, a.k.a. Woman, and let her be inducted into the Hall of Fame. You know, posthumously. That would be a nice little tribute, because she does deserve it for all that she ever did. I do agree with that. Woman was a great character, and she was important for a lot of different wrestlers. She accompanied a lot of great wrestlers at the time and was very important. So I think should be something to be said, because it's a lost art. But other than that, you know, I know people are going to have their own opinions about this whole story and how people might have gotten shut. You know, remember if Jericho was being a little more extreme than, a little more brutal than people have expected. But I don't have anything. I don't see why it wouldn't be. I don't see why you don't. Honestly, just so much happening there. It was such an unfortunate situation, and it's saddening to see. And that's all I got to say about it. I just think that it bears without retelling. The story told itself well. And that, when I see David and Sandra, Nancy's sister, hugging together, and David trying to keep it together because it's such a tough time, but chronicling the story of his father and his mother and his younger son and his younger brother, yeah, that's got to be something to be said. Where, yeah, that's important. And by the way, he does have family outside of that. I mean, for the fact of the matter is that Nancy was a stepmother, but man, you saw there was a bond. And with Daniel, there was such a bond right there. That was real close-knit family. And for all the time that you saw Chris Benoit not looking like he would have been where he probably was abusive at times, and it probably was hot and cold times with him. And it was too bad. I think the roid rage probably contributed to him being a domestic abuser. That I believe. And I think eventually somebody should have figured it out, and that whole thing should have split. That's true. So I think that's one thing, but then also his work in the ring, the CTE was what took him over the top. I think the CTE was the ultimate factor of the homicide suicide. Because I don't know, if not for the concussions he suffered, if that wasn't the overlying factor along with the alcohol and the drugs, that would have really made the biggest difference. Like, I don't know that if somebody, would have that mindset to completely go like he did, because I mean, every other time before that, he was being apologetic. But the whole point was Nancy should have never accepted it. She should have gotten out of that relationship. And it's unfortunate the support system she had didn't see the warning signs and couldn't help her rescue from that for the sake of the sons and for her sake. I mean, it's just a sacrifice away, but it never got the chance to happen. And that's unfortunate. So I look at that and I just say to myself, man, what a heartening tale. Dark Side of the Ring just does a good job with these stories. The Von Erichs, Gino Hernandez from last year, the Montreal Screwjob. What good stories they're telling. But this right here, Chris Benoit, to start off this new season with this was, whew, boy, that was rough. It's unfortunate. It's sad. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. First chance doing a live chat here on YouTube. See when he wants to watch this after the fact. I know that probably nobody watched this live, and that's okay. But you're catching on the download after, or you're going to watch it. I'll make this available on the. I'm going to probably go and attach this to the Rescuers Row podcast for tomorrow. I'll add this as an extra part at the end because I want to make sure it's available in audio for everybody out there. So we'll do that. So make sure to go check me out, WrestlingIsReal.com. And obviously, if you want to go ahead and keep it on the things, just remember that we're always, doing the show every Thursday, available at kingofpodcast.com or WrestlingIsReal.com. Just look for the show. Subscribe wherever you need to go subscribe to it. And, of course, I have my other shows when I'm not podcasting and the Broadcasters Podcast. Everything you need to find out at kingofpodcasts.com. And also, most important, help me out at this time of need when times are tough. The revenue pipelines are a little bit going dry. I have another one I need to try to get turned back on. I need the faucet turned on, and that is the Amazon page I have at kingofamazon.com, kingofamazon.com. I hope you will consider buying from Amazon using my special link, kingofamazon.com, so you can help out the show and you can help us make a little bit of scratch back to help supplement. And hopefully I can also donate and share back what I've gotten from all of you. Thanks to all of you. I appreciate it. We'll leave it there. And don't forget, have a regular Wrestling Row podcast coming up Wednesday going to Thursday because wrestling needs us.